On our family getaway, my daughter-in-law snapped at the hotel front desk clerk. "Ignore that elderly lady. She's merely the staff." My son chuckled heartily. She had no clue I was the actual owner. My response afterward had her shaking. "I'm thrilled you've tuned in. Hang in there through my tale and share the city you're viewing from so I can gauge its spread. I'd anticipated this vacation for ages." At 72, chances to bond meaningfully with my son Jay and his loved ones were rare. His idea of a week in Miami filled me with optimism. Perhaps I'd finally bridge the gap with Valentina, my daughter-in-law who'd stayed aloof over their 5-year marriage. The 4-hour journey to the coastal paradise resort buzzed with Jay and Valentina, chatting about spa sessions, afternoon teas, and lavish meals, acting like I was invisible. Whenever I chimed in, inquiring about the grandkids or proposing a group activity, Valentina offered curt replies, while Jay pretended I wasn't there. I overlooked the warning signs, desperate to repair our fractured ties. The Coastal Paradise Resort ranked among my proudest accomplishments, unknown to my relatives. Following my husband's death when Jay was only 12, I bootstrapped my hospitality empire from scratch. It began with a modest inn, where I toiled 18-hour shifts, cleaning surfaces and handling bookings. Gradually, I expanded to 17 venues spanning 3 states. I deliberately shielded my enterprise from family life, hoping Jay would value me for my character, not my wealth. Pulling up to the majestic entrance, a surge of familiar satisfaction hit me amid the impeccable landscaping and the attentive valet in uniform hurrying to assist visitors. Securing Coastal Paradise took me 3 years, plus 2 more for the flawless overhaul. I handpicked every feature, from the gleaming marble surfaces to the sparkling chandeliers. Jay passed the keys to the valet while Valentina fiddled with her high-end shades, her golden locks impeccably arranged. Her allure was striking, the sort nurtured by upscale beauty parlors and fitness coaches. At 35, 2 decades Jay's junior, she ensured everyone remembered her youth. "Keep in mind," she instructed him nearing the entrance, "I expect the penthouse level. Availability isn't an issue. Sort it out." Jay agreed promptly. It still stunned and hurt how he yielded to her so readily. The assertive kid I'd nurtured had become a fellow who needed her nod for every move. Stepping into the sophisticated atrium, I beamed at the lively hum I knew so well. Jasmine, the reception supervisor, glanced up and her gaze widened upon spotting me, but I subtly nodded no. I wasn't set for them to discover my true role yet. "Good afternoon," she greeted politely yet cordially. "Welcome to the Coastal Paradise Resort. How may I assist?" "Under Carter," Jay answered. "We're due for the penthouse accommodations." Jasmine tapped swiftly on her computer. "I've located your booking, Mr. Carter. It's set for our Coastal Paradise Deluxe room, though the penthouse remains occupied throughout your visit." I observed Valentina's expression stiffen, her chin clenching and her stare flashing annoyance under her impeccable cosmetics. "That's not acceptable," she barked. "Do you realize our status? I demanded the penthouse during booking." Jasmine stayed composed, her posture stiffening just a bit. "My regrets for the mix-up, Mrs. Carter. The deluxe option is exquisite, complete with a secluded terrace." "Spare me details on an inferior space," Valentina cut in, her tone sharpening to draw glances from fellow visitors. "I require the penthouse immediately." I edged closer, aiming to calm things. "Valentina, perhaps we might." Yet she whirled toward me before I uttered more, her features twisted in rage. "Silence from you," she bellowed, her words reverberating across the stone flooring. "Jasmine, or whoever you are, just disregard this senior woman's input. She holds no weight. She's only the aide we dragged along." The lobby chatter halted abruptly. Heat flushed my face from the embarrassment flooding in, but she pressed on. "Avoid addressing the old lady," she screeched, jabbing a finger my way like I was trash. "She's merely the housemaid, the caregiver. Don't bother with her." I remained rooted in place. My throat felt parched, my pulse racing fiercely enough to seem like it would shatter my chest. Over my 72 years, nobody had hurled such spite or blatant disdain at me, especially not amid onlookers. Yet the follow-up stung profoundly. Jay tilted his head and burst into laughter. Not a nervous chuckle to diffuse the air, but pure delight, as though witnessing his spouse publicly dismantle me was the most hilarious spectacle imaginable. "Oh my goodness, Vale, Valentina," he murmured, brushing away a tear from his cheek. "You're awful, but spot on. Mom, please, let us take care of this. Why don't you find a seat and relax?" The treachery struck me like a punch to the gut. This was my boy, the one I'd raised single-handedly, slaving away endlessly for, giving up everything to ensure he had a solid future. Yet here he was, chuckling at my disgrace. Jasmine's complexion had drained of color, blending shock and pity in a way that deepened the hurt. Throughout the foyer, murmurs rippled and fingers pointed my way. Several folks gripped their mobiles, clearly capturing the entire fiasco. "Madam," Jasmine murmured gently, her tone compassionate yet polished. "Maybe you'd prefer to relax in our lounge area as we sort out the suite issue." I hadn't even responded when Valentina unleashed an exaggerated exhale. "Right. Escort the elderly lady off so she stops causing a scene, and have staff monitor her. She wanders easily." Jay chuckled once more. Onlookers stared, and my heart shattered into countless shards. I longed to vanish, to flee this elegant atrium, my heartless daughter-in-law, my jeering son, and never return. Yet a remnant of the resilience that forged this dynasty anchored me in place. I locked eyes with Jasmine. Hers reflected quiet torment. She recognized me instantly. She understood that one command from me could have security remove Valentina before her high-end shoes hit the marble. Still, I held my tongue. Grabbing my compact bag, I headed toward the lift, chin lifted amid the heavy burden of embarrassment trailing me. In my wake, Valentina continued berating Jasmine over the luxury suite, her demands laced with the arrogance of lifelong privilege. As the lift doors sealed, I glimpsed Jasmine's gaze once more. She offered a subtle incline of her head, conveying comprehension, regret, and readiness for my cue. I'd constructed this vast enterprise from scratch, supporting more than 300 staff across my venues. In industry networks, I earned admiration, consulted by fellow innkeepers for my equity and honesty. But there in that entrance hall, I appeared merely as a pitiful senior, being berated by her son's spouse as he mocked my suffering. Rising to the 12th level in the lift, each floor marker ignited a spark within. The agony lingered, raw and profound, but resolve started to emerge alongside it. The following dawn, I stirred in a space meant for bliss, though it resembled limbo instead. My quarters faced the sea, where soft waves kissed the immaculate shore. The dawn sky glowed in hues of rose and amber, shades that usually stole my breath, yet I sensed a void, as though I'd been gutted and abandoned as an empty husk. Sleep had eluded me. Whenever my lids shut, Valentina's derisive words echoed. "She's merely the staff." Jay's guffaws looped in my mind as I pondered alternative responses, though inwardly I realized the core issue lay elsewhere. In truth, my kin regarded me as insignificant. A gentle rap at the entrance interrupted my reverie. Peering out, I found Jay in the corridor. He seemed uneasy, but betrayed no regret. "Mom, breakfast time." Afterward, Valentina insists you mind the little ones poolside while we indulge at the wellness center. No greeting, no "how was your rest?" Not a whisper about the foyer incident. Merely another directive masked as a request. "Jay," I replied softly, "regarding yesterday evening." He dismissed it with a flick of his wrist. "Mom, no need to escalate." Valentina was tense over the accommodations. You know her temperament when plans falter. Escalate. That's how he labeled his spouse's open degradation of me. "She labeled me a domestic, Jay. She hollered at me before an audience of outsiders." He fidgeted, eyes darting aside. "It wasn't intentional. That's Valentina's flair for theatrics. Let's drop it, all right." This is meant to be a getaway. I studied him, hunting for traces of the child I'd cherished, the young lad who'd snuggle beside me in storms, who'd offer me weeds as wildflowers and declare me the mightiest soul alive. That child had vanished. In his stead stood a 47-year-old adult prioritizing his partner's ease over his parents' honor. "All right," I uttered, the syllable bitter on my tongue. "I'll look after the children." His ease was evident. "Great. We might be gone the whole day. Treatments, then a meal, perhaps browsing shops. That works." Naturally, it didn't. I'd envisioned this journey as bonding moments with relatives, connecting with my grandkids and sensing inclusion. Rather, I was demoted to a free babysitter, but I inclined my head. Refusing would spark drama, and I'd grasped years back that harmony outweighed voicing discontent. The breakfast area buzzed with travelers savoring their repasts. Valentina had snagged the prime window table, the top spot in the entire restaurant, and she was already snapping commands at the servers like she ran the joint. "I need freshly squeezed orange juice. No concentrate garbage," she snapped at our server, a guy called Terrell whom I'd seen on previous trips, and poach those eggs for precisely 3 minutes, not one bit over or under. I noticed Terrell struggling to keep a straight face, though the strain in his eyes betrayed him. I'd drilled my team to deliver exceptional service, yet Valentina was pushing even their limits. My grandkids, Zuri and Deshawn, 8 and 10 years old, sat quietly at the table, totally absorbed in their tablets. They hardly glanced up as I walked over. "Morning, darling," I murmured to Zuri, extending a hand to smooth a loose curl behind her ear. But Valentina's arm darted forward, blocking me. "Hands off her hair. It was done just yesterday and I won't have it ruined." I yanked my hand away like it had met fire. Zuri stayed glued to her screen. "Kids, greet Grandma Renee," Jay muttered, his voice flat with disinterest. "Hi," they chorused together, eyes still locked on their gadgets. I took the last open seat, the one facing away from the stunning resort scenery. Valentina had claimed the prime views for her crew, sticking me with the scraps like I was barely an invite. "Renee," Valentina added, not bothering to meet my eyes. "Once we're done eating, you'll escort the children to the pool. Slather on sunscreen hourly. Zuri scorches fast, and if she turns the slightest pink, it's on you." I dipped my head, biting back the retort bubbling up. "Steer clear of the deep water, no poolside treats either, they're loaded with chemicals. And if anything comes up, no matter how small, page me right away. Don't play hero." Every directive felt like a fresh jab. Yet another sign she had zero faith in me handling my own grandkids without her constant oversight. "How much time at the spa?" I ventured. Valentina finally turned her icy stare my way. "Until we're ready. This trip's ours, not yours. You're just the support." Jay stayed mute, buried in his phone, utterly detached. I pondered when he'd turned into the sort of husband who'd allow his wife to boss his mom around like staff. Post-meal, I wound up poolside with Zuri and Deshawn, attempting small talk while they vanished into their devices. Nearby, other clans joked, splashed, and bonded for real. We seemed like total outsiders merely occupying the same space. "Grandma!" Zuri piped up out of nowhere, and my pulse quickened, crossing fingers for a chat. "Mom mentioned you used to scrub floors for wealthy folks. That right?" Her words hit like a punch. I'd toiled relentlessly all my days, never once mopped for others. I'd forged my business from nothing, employing hundreds and gaining clout in a guy-heavy industry. Yet in Valentina's warped tale, I amounted to little more than hired help. "No, honey," I replied gently. "I'm an entrepreneur. I construct hotels." Deshawn finally lifted his gaze from the tablet the first time that morning. "Mom claims you invent tales of success because you're embarrassed about being broke." The sting of it left me gasping. Valentina hadn't only shamed me openly, she'd been twisting my grandkids' views, stuffing their minds with falsehoods to paint me as a sad, fanciful has-been. "Your grandma isn't broke, and she doesn't fabricate anything," I stated steadily. Zuri merely lifted her shoulders. Mom's word. She figures you hole up in a cramped flat and fake wealth to boost your ego. Truth was, I resided in a lavish Bay View penthouse pricier than most folks' fortunes, but my grandkids viewed me as a pitiful elder scraping by in misery, fibbing about grandeur. For the following 6 hours, I lingered by the pool, overseeing kids who scarcely acknowledged me as their folks indulged on my dime. Fellow visitors would occasionally exchange pleasantries, and I'd offer brief, courteous replies, growing hollower by the moment. When Jay and Valentina strolled back, they glowed from spa pampering and a lavish meal. Valentina's manicure gleamed new, her locks flawless. She radiated indulgence, courtesy of my resort's treatments, ones I'd footed the bill for. "Kids okay?" Jay inquired, thumb scrolling his screen. "They managed," I answered. What more was there to utter? That they saw me as a fraud and menial? That their mom had sabotaged any shot at genuine ties? "Fine," Valentina brushed off. "You're on duty with them tomorrow, too. Golf early, then brunch with pals. We crossed paths at the spa. I observed my son agreeing with her schemes without checking if I had any say, without considering that perhaps I preferred to spend my getaway on activities beyond unpaid babysitting. That evening, alone in my suite with a view of the sea I'd strive so much to secure, I finally grasped the reality. This wasn't a family getaway. It was a work excursion where I'd been assigned the part of the servant. Only, rather than receiving compensation, I was covering the costs for the honor of being dismissed like garbage. Yet as I lingered in the shadows, hearing the surf pound the coastline, a transformation began within me. The hurt lingered, more profound than before, but it was now accompanied by another sensation, raw, piercing fury. Fury toward being overlooked, toward the deceptions, toward being demeaned as worthless despite having constructed it all. Starting the next day, I resolved, everything would alter. The third morning of our trip unfolded much like the previous ones, with Valentina outlining my tasks while Jay remained nearby, approving like an obedient aide. On this occasion, they had arranged an excursion to a local vineyard region, leaving me behind to watch the children. "Ensure they eat at precisely midday," Valentina instructed, meticulously dabbing on her lipstick as though conducting a precise operation. "And Zuri turns irritable when her energy dips, so keep the energy bars I prepared on hand." I felt like pointing out that I'd already parented one kid and understood childcare basics, but experience had taught me that asserting myself just invited extended scoldings and sly jabs. "We'll likely return by 6, Jay chimed in, eyes fixed on his screen. "Possibly later if the roads are congested." As they prepared to depart, I caught Valentina on her call, adopting that phony, overly charming voice she deployed when she believed she was outsmarting someone. "No, we can't do dinner tonight either. I'm tied up with the kids. I get it's absurd, but it'll only last a bit longer. Believe me, once we wrap this up, we won't face this hassle again." A cold shiver coursed through me. Her phrasing, "once this is all wrapped up," implied more than just the trip concluding. Once they were gone, I brought the little ones to the resort's youth program, which I'd personally designed to offer parents greater freedom amid their visits. The staff connected wonderfully with Zuri and Deshawn, and for the initial time since our arrival, I witnessed genuine joy as they giggled and mingled with peers. With some personal time, I strolled the grounds. It had been ages since I'd viewed my property as a visitor rather than the proprietor, and I aimed to gauge its operations authentically. That's when I stumbled upon the exchange that upended it all. Passing the poolside lounge, I identified familiar sounds from a secluded beach hut. Jay and Valentina ought to have been touring the vineyards, yet there they sat, concealed by the drapes, conversing softly with an unfamiliar pair. "The issue is," Valentina remarked, "she's aging, and the elderly don't last eternally if you get what I mean." An unknown woman chuckled. "Valentina, that's terrible." "I'm merely realistic," Valentina countered. "Jay's an only son, so we'll inherit it all in due time. The sole uncertainty is how much longer we must endure." My gut twisted. I edged nearer, concealing myself by a sturdy palm. "And regarding Mrs. Renee," the strange man inquired, "doesn't she possess her own funds?" Then came my son's tone, the one I'd once relied on utterly. "My mother." "No way, she's broke as can be. She dwells in a tiny flat, getting by on benefits. I've supported her for ages." The falsehood spilled effortlessly from him. I pondered how recently he'd invented them. I resided in a $5 million luxury condo, pulling in monthly investment returns that surpassed annual earnings for most. But in Jay's distorted tale, I was a load he charitably carried. "That's why this journey is such a drag," Valentina went on. "We must haul her along since she can't manage expenses independently. It's akin to owning a pitiful stray you can't abandon." The other lady uttered a sympathetic noise. "That's dreadful for you both. And she probably assumes you'll look after her in her frail, ill years." "Not on my watch," Valentina declared with a venomous snicker. "The instant she requires serious attention, off she goes to a state facility. I refuse to convert our home into a nursing pad for some irrelevant elder." I steadied myself against the trunk to avoid collapsing. They weren't merely discussing my eventual passing. They intended to discard me the second I proved burdensome. But Jay's following statement was what truly broke me. "The ironic part is, she still believes she's significant," he noted, his words laced with mocking glee. "She spins these wild yarns about running companies and achieving triumphs. It's nearly pathetic, her level of denial." "Early signs of decline?" the stranger inquired. "Perhaps," Jay replied, "or perhaps she's simply eager to convince herself that she counts for something. Regardless, it's mortifying. Just the day before, she even claimed to the children that she operates hotels." "Hotels? Picture that." They burst into laughter and the noise sliced into me like jagged shards. "Well," Valentina remarked, "at least we won't endure her wild tales for long. I'd wager she has about 5 years left, tops 10, and then we'll be liberated to pursue our own paths without feigning interest." A pointless elderly lady who's accomplished zilch in her existence. I lingered behind that palm, sensing my whole reality crumbling. This wasn't mere chit-chat about some hapless kin. It was my very son and his spouse plotting my demise like an eagerly anticipated getaway. "The silver lining," Valentina chimed in, "is her eagerness for whatever scraps of notice we toss her way, such as this getaway. She truly believes we extended the invitation out of genuine desire for her presence. Little does she know we dragged her here solely to mind the children while we slipped off for enjoyment." More chuckles, more offhand malice. "Does she chip in for costs at all, Brenda?" the other lady probed. "You're joking, right?" Valentina derided. "She's utterly worthless with finances. Jay foots every bill, her meals, her bills, even this vacation. She's just a monetary black hole for us." Yet another falsehood. For ages, I'd been quietly supporting Jay with cash, handling chunks of his home loan, funding the children's elite education. I even covered Valentina's extravagant purchases. The statements arriving at my home were staggering in amount, but I settled them quietly, convinced I was bolstering my loved ones. The sole benefit of keeping her nearby, Jay noted, is her reliability as a caregiver. Complimentary babysitting, essentially. She's so craving our validation that she'll comply with any demand. It's almost amusing in a way. "It truly is," Valentina agreed, observing her frantic efforts to win our favor, showering the kids with lavish presents. She always. I staggered away, clamping my palm over my lips to muffle a sob. The deception stung like betrayal. But listening to them mock my existence as a woeful farce, a load to be jettisoned, twisted like a blade in my chest. This transcended issues of funds or regard. It revealed a total absence of compassion. They weren't merely siphoning my resources. They were stripping my self-worth and heritage, warping it into something vile and insignificant. My thoughts flashed to that initial evening in the entrance hall. I'd brimmed with mortification and chose not to unmask them. I'd aimed to shield Jay from the shame of his partner's antics. Yet now I saw he was involved. He had cast me as the fool in their scheme. He shared in my degradation, and he accepted it without qualms. I'd cherished my achievements, the existence I'd forged for my kin, but they'd reduced my labors to a jest. I amounted to little more than a cash machine, an unpaid sitter, a wretched senior they yearned to evict. A fresh fury ignited within, distinct from the prior night's brief fury. This was icy, unyielding determination. They deemed me worthless. They viewed me as comedy. I'd demonstrate the power of this so-called worthless elder. I'd reveal the cost of scorning me. I retrieved my cell and rang Jasmine. She picked up immediately. "Ma'am, I'm relieved you reached out," she responded, her tone blending ease and worry. "Is all okay? Have you witnessed it?" "Everything's under control, Jasmine," I assured her evenly. "I require your assistance with a task." I returned to the youth area and gathered Zuri and Deshawn. They scarcely glanced away from their devices as I grasped their hands. "Come along, children," I instructed. "We're embarking on an excursion." They raised weary gazes to me. "Mom insisted we remain put," Deshawn noted. "Your mother's mistaken," I countered. "Off we go." I led them to the shore, and for the initial instance, I set aside my device and purse. We constructed fortifications from sand. We dashed beside the waves, and I showed them techniques for spotting shells. We giggled, and I shared anecdotes from when their father was young. Briefly, it resembled an authentic family escape, though the impending reality weighed heavily in my gut. That night, Jay and Valentina came back, glowing from sun and spirits. They entered my space, poised to dump the children and head to supper, yet I positioned myself to bar the entry. "We're set to head out," Valentina declared, ignoring me entirely, her focus on the young ones. "You can retire now." "No, I won't be retiring quite so soon," I replied, my tone serene as a balmy dusk. She at last met my eyes, a spark of annoyance flashing. "What do you mean by that?" "It signifies," I explained, "that you must contact reception and secure alternate lodging for tonight. You'll depart come morning." Jay and Valentina gaped at me, their expressions etched with bewilderment. "What on earth are you saying, Mom?" Jay questioned. "Stop feigning ignorance," I stated. "I caught snippets of your conversation by the cabana. I heard every word you've been whispering about me." Valentina's expression shifted from bewilderment to outright rage. "You were spying on our talk," she snapped. "That's not your business." "This hotel belongs to me, Valentina," I replied, my tone growing sharper with each syllable. "I can do whatever I please, and right now I want you gone." I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder, passing it to Jay. It detailed every bit of monetary help I'd provided him through the years. His gaze grew wide as he scanned the figures, finally grasping the true scale of my support. "You've been deceiving me," he questioned, his words trembling while he stared at his spouse. "She's the deceiver," Valentina bellowed. "She doesn't run this establishment. She's nothing but a washed-up lady who scrubs floors to get by." At that moment, Jasmine, the receptionist supervisor, entered with the security team. "I heard there was some trouble," she stated evenly, her focus on me, keeping her demeanor composed and official. "Jasmine, set her straight," Valentina howled, jabbing a finger in my direction. "Explain that she has no claim here." Jasmine glanced my way and I offered a subtle signal. "Mrs. Renee Carter isn't merely the proprietor of this resort." Jasmine continued that she holds exclusive ownership of every one of the 17 coastal paradise locations nationwide. She's our creator, our chief executive, and the driving force behind all of us being here now. Valentina paled instantly. Her eyes bounced between Jasmine and me, wild with alarm. Jay remained frozen, clutching the papers, proof of the falsehoods he'd spread. "What's going on here?" Valentina eventually choked out. "It means," I declared, my words laced with authority and determination, "you're packing up tomorrow and everything's on you. Every dollar you and your partner shelled out for this getaway, spa sessions, dining, drinks, will hit your card directly." "That's impossible," Valentina shouted. But it is possible, I countered, a faint grin tugging at my mouth. And it will happen. I faced Jay next. As for you, my boy, I added, the funding ends today. No more house payments, no more college fees. You're flying solo from here. Jay's features crumpled. Mom, let's discuss this. No discussion needed, Jay. You picked your path. You opted to mock your mother's embarrassment. You spread untruths about me to your kids. You sowed the seeds. Now deal with the harvest. He and Valentina exchanged glances, their expressions a blend of stunned disbelief and treachery. They'd figured they had me cornered, but they'd misjudged badly. They never realized the so-called pathetic elder they ridiculed actually controlled the game. That evening, after years of unrest, I drifted off to sleep peacefully. I retired feeling cherished and admired. Each dawn, I rose eager for what lay ahead. It took me ages to realize solitude doesn't equal isolation, and that the kin you select can outshine the blood ties you're given. Jay and Valentina believed they were schooling me by humiliating me in that resort entrance. They nailed one truth. That vacation did teach me a vital lesson. I discovered my own value is worth defending, even if I'm the sole warrior, and that shifted my entire world. This tale we've shared is made up, though inspired by actual occurrences. Identities and locations have been altered for privacy. We aren't here to condemn, but to encourage reflection. How many moms endure quietly within their walls? I'm eager to hear. If you stood in my shoes, how would you respond? Would you hold your tongue for harmony, or confront the chaos to reclaim your say? Share your views. Each narrative sparks light for another soul. May blessings abound.